I'm Ray Pastoors and I live in Brunswick, and one of my passions is sustainability. And basically I am running for council based on that objective around sustainability, based on what I've seen in terms of development in our streets over the last few years, especially in those regards Wygon Street and also in the Brunswick Activity Centre Nicholson Street. I see that as quite concerning, and obviously something that is there an opportunity for us to be able to work with developers but also the state government in ensuring that we can tighten those controls. At the moment obviously it is difficult because the State Planning Minister Vijay Bhusal has made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to agree with council in terms of our amendments for the apartment design code, which ensures livability but also sustainability, lighting, natural sunlight for people as well. Really important features. In addition to that, even height controls is an issue that the Minister is not able to agree on at this stage, not even with the sunset clause. So I'm sure many of you share those concerns, and that's one of the reasons why I'm standing for council, is that initiative for sustainability and making sure that every day we do all we can to fight with the state government but also work together with our stakeholders to ensure that we can actually get an outcome that isn't compromising on the heritage of our area that we are proud to be part of in Brunswick and in this area as well. To that notion as well of sustainability, I also stand for sustainability of obviously the environment kind, and I really would like to see, C71 has been great in terms of encouraging developers to become more open to sustainable ventures such as energy efficiency lighting. But I think what we can see in terms of council and development in this space is to encourage and incentivise developers to provide more sustainable options and to go with a greener approach. So that's why I'm standing for council. I'm on other issues. My values are around diversity, equality, and in that regards, fairness as well. Thank you so much. No worries.
Thank you.
Chris Hansen, I'm also a member of Labor, standing in Brunswick, standing in the South Ward. So I've been working in Brunswick for the last 6 to 8 weeks, and I've had 2 main questions. The first is obviously, where do you stand on planning, which is something that we're going to talk about a lot tonight. But the second one is, why, as a young person, are you interested in local government? So for me, it's fairly simple. The second is the simplest to answer, is that it's important that we have young people involved in decision making in our community. Councils make a lot of long-term strategic decisions about how we'll move, live and work together. And it's important that we have young people involved in that mix. So a little bit about me professionally. I started off my career in the criminal courts. I worked with children perpetrators of sexual violence. Since that time, I spent a number of years working in sustainable and active transport, advising state and local governments on ways they can improve their infrastructure to reduce social isolation for people in the community. Since then, I've jumped back into the justice sector. I'm working currently as a senior social policy advisor in the state justice sector, and I work 1 day a week with young boys living in foster care. And the reason I do that is because I think as a community we have a lot to give. There's a lot we can do that costs us very little, that will create opportunities for young people to both succeed and to be the leaders for tomorrow. So that's a bit about me. I'll hand over to the next candidate, but looking forward to your questions and also your ideas for Brunswick. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And can we go to Dave?
Yeah. Good evening everyone, my name's Dave O'Brien. I've got probably a similar background to Chris actually, except that I went a bit further from Chris in my career, out of res care, crisis refuges, residential units for youth justice coalition issues up in New South Wales. Later on to the building industry, and then later on into the state territorials, along with my occupation in the building industry, and then onto the United Nations. And the reason why I put my hand up this time is because we're at a bit of a political junction at a national level, but we've also got international responsibilities in the way we manage precincts like this one in particular, because we've got massive conservation matters to attend to on a statewide basis that extend from probably the southeast down past St Kilda down towards Cheltenham, all the way across through to the Hume Highway. There's a massive corridor of restoration work that needs to be undertaken because of intergenerational change of ownership. And we're going to have to tackle matters of custodianship during the course of the next 5-year plan. And so what my strategy is as a potential candidate would be to take myself through the final stages of this 5-year plan, liaise with the other candidates, and to make sure we include our international obligations as a very firm part of our strategy for the next 5-year plan, because the next 5-year plan will involve ourselves being required to become compliant with certain United Nations mandating procedures, which we haven't discussed. We haven't discussed in detail. So,
thank you. We have to move on.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Lambros Tapinos. I'm a current councillor. I got elected in November 2008, and I've also served twice as mayor before this city. I've lived in Brunswick my whole life. I know this community inside out. I've worked with many of the community members and community leaders that are in this room, and I think together we have achieved a lot over my time on council. In capital works, we managed to succeed in getting the Brunswick Bars done, the library, all refurbished, big capital works projects for our city. We've supported sporting pavilions, and we've done a record level of investment in roads and footpaths, and most importantly, bicycle paths. Now, all of these projects don't happen easily. They don't just happen. They happen because councillors are there advocating for those issues. And in each and every one of those, I've taken a strong stance, and I've pushed them through the council as much as possible to get the support and make sure they're delivered. In planning is a huge issue. Half the job of a councillor is probably planning, particularly in Brunswick. I've always advocated and supported mandatory height controls from day one on the council, and I will continue to do that until we achieve that goal. There's a state election coming up in 2 years' time. I'm certain we would win if we politicise and make it an election issue. The apartment design code, innovative, brand new, will improve the quality of apartments, knocked back. We will make that happen as well. We will continue to advocate for it. We had success in residential zones, protecting most of Brunswick in the most restrictive zone. That is a great success, but it doesn't go far enough. I'm passionate about public transport. I made the decision as mayor to oppose the East-West Link and take the state government to court. People said that can't be won. We won that debate. I'm seeking re-election because I want to continue to support the community, work with the community to achieve goals for Brunswick. A lot of them are advocacy, and some are ones we can deliver ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi everyone. So I'm Dean O'Callaghan. I'm running for council because I'm very passionate about people, the planet, living into perpetuity, all those P things. Basically, I really want to just keep creativity happening on the planet, and at the moment, I don't see much positive happening in the 50 years or 20 years or 30 years time, because it feels like we're sliding into climactic Armageddon, and I don't see any action happening at a federal level. I see a little bit happening at a state level, but I see a lot of big mistakes, and I think it's time that we had a big voice for future generations in politics. And if that means starting at a local level, which is obviously a good place to start and a place where we can get a lot of things done, then so be it. So that's why I'm running for local council. I'm part of a group called Save the Planet. We're a new political party. We're pushing really, really hard for negative emissions. It's the kind of talk you don't hear much, especially from mainstream politicians, but it is what is critically needed to save ourselves from disaster and all our future generations. We need to look at what's going to happen when we have crazy weather events like we've had last weekend more and more often. We're not going to be able to rely on all the systems that we've relied on for so long to give us food and shelter. We're going to need to start looking at looking after each other, food security through community growing of food. There is some great movements in Brunswick, and I'm so happy to be a resident and a small ethical producer in Brunswick. I have a solar-powered warehouse in the middle of Brunswick, and I'm trying really hard to employ people and make great products that I stand behind that will help us through all sorts of problems. But yeah, I'd really love to talk to anyone that wants to talk to me at any stage. Save the planet. I'm Dino.
Party has not endorsed any candidate for this coming elections. I've lived in Brunswick all my life, but before proceeding, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional honours of the land in which we're meeting today and pay my respect to the elders past and present. And I do so not just out of formality, that because to remind ourselves that with the exception of Australia's first people, all of us have come here by boat or by plane at some stage of our lives. I got involved in the Brunswick Council back in the early 80s when local government was property franchise. It was ratepayers who were not naturalised, were not allowed to vote, even though it was property franchised. We had annual elections and not for triennial or quadrennial elections we have now, and council did not receive any expenses or allowances at the time. All of this is history because we have changed it, and we have changed for the better. And some of us have been involved in those changes. We went from ratepayers rhetoric to citizenship. We changed the language in those days, which is a great step forward for local government. This used to be a working class suburbs where you could have actually counted the number of trees in our municipalities. And of course, together, I recognise Elizabeth Jackson, who was on council with me at the Old Brunswick City Council. A lot of things have taken place. I've been involved both in structural changes as well as program changes. I mean, for example, I was involved in promoting the music of migration in Brunswick, which then turned out to be the Brunswick Music Festival, and of course the Sydney Road Festa. But there's still lots of things to do, both structurally and in programs, and that's why I've accepted to put my hands up for this election.
Thank you, Joe.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess Dorney. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're standing on the grounds of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and future. I am super excited to be nominating as a Greens candidate in Moreland South Ward. I love Brunswick, and I value a community that's diverse, connected, resilient and healthy. I think that local council has huge potential in terms of providing the leadership and the advocacy that we need to make sure that Moreland continues to thrive as a community. My background in health promotion and public health gives me a really nice perspective into the social determinants and what people need to be healthy. They need to be connected socially and physically, being able to get to the places they need the services that keep them healthy. And I want to be a representative for my community, as diverse as that is, in making sure that that I'm a true representative to the people's needs. In terms of planning, it's a lot of lobbying and advocacy to state government, and again, we're in a really great position to bring forward the needs of the community, not just be meeting environmental standards, but we need to go above and beyond that. We're in a time where the minimum's not enough anymore, at being a Greens Council, we've got some great policies and we're really looking forward to implementing them.
Thanks, Jess. Kelly.
Hi, so I'm Kelly. I'm a member of the Labor Party. And basically, I'm a resident in Brunswick and I work in Coburg, and I work as a disability support worker, and I see this disconnect from the community for certain residents, not just people with a disability, but throughout the whole community. And I think council has a responsibility to be able to fill those gaps, among other things, but just from my perspective and my experience, I'll walk down the street with someone that I'm working with, and half of the roads at the shops on Sydney Road, we can't go in. We are cut off. There are all these barriers to participation. A step into a shop is one physical barrier, but it's more than that. It extends to things like there aren't enough places, open places for young families, for people who don't have the ability to connect with the community. So I think council has a responsibility to make sure that the funds are there for services to be provided for people who need that extra push or extra helping hand to be able to connect with the community. My background is in, I have a degree in communications and a master's in international relations, and I understand that Brunswick has a lot of really great potential. It's a really great place to live, and I love living in Brunswick, but I think we can make it better. So with planning, taking into consideration people who do need those barriers torn down to participate in the community. And that's why I'm standing as a candidate. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Samantha Ratnam. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to elders past and present. It's been one of the greatest privileges to serve this community over the last 4 years on Moreland City Council. During that time, I've served on the Urban Planning Committee, I've been the chair of the Reconciliation and Disability Advisory Committees and held the portfolio areas of responsibility for social diversity, reconciliation, multiculturalism and youth. I'm standing again for council because I love this community, my community, our community, and there's so much more work that we have to do. We are on the cusp as a city of a city that's potentially going to become a concrete jungle, or a city that we can create to be a city that we live in, that we can breathe in, and that we can move around in. But to do that, we need more plan and controls. We've seen some terrible decisions made by successive state governments, and most recently the refusal by our planning minister for minimum apartment sizes that we proposed, for mandatory height controls in Brunswick after years and years of community consultation and work, for 20% affordable housing in the Brunswick Activity Centre, and appeal rights that are such a basic right for residents for new buildings in the Activity Centre. If elected to council, I and my fellow Greens will ask for a review of these provisions, including a review of the neighbourhood residential zones, which we saw significantly watered down by this state government when we asked for, in residential areas, 1 dwelling per 200 square metres, and they watered that down to 4 dwellings per lot size, no matter how big or small the lot is. We need greater funding for sustainable transport, and if elected to council, we will push for at least a 50% increase in spending on bicycle and walking infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure. We need more open space in Brunswick, and we've just done some great work identifying the areas that are least served by open space, and those are spaces where you can't walk to a park within 400 metres of your home. So we're ready to go, and we're ready to spend that open space fund that we have now accumulated to actually proactively acquire some open space. We don't take donations from the property development industry, so please vote for councillors who have integrity, vision and care about this community and who work really hard for you over the next 4 years.
Thanks, Samantha. Over to Mel.
My name's Mel Yuan, and I'm an independent candidate for South Ward. Time's short, so I'll try and use it wisely. Today I want to make just one argument, which is a case against developing council car parks for housing. Since state statutory authorities like VicTrack and Melbourne Water are disposing of surplus or underutilised land, this means that land that we've taken for granted as public open space is being sold on the open market for development or back to us as ratepayers. We're having to pay to retain existing open space, but the overall amount of public land is decreasing, and the cost for this is being borne by taxpayers. An example of this is Melbourne Water's sale of the land on Hopeton Avenue in Brunswick, and I'm told that council will have to pay $1 million to preserve a small slice of it, and $6 million worth will go to private development. With increasing housing density, there's a consensus about the need to create new open space. Developers pay their open space contribution to make this a reality. In effect, these costs pass from council to developer, to owner, to renter. People who live in new developments have already paid in advance for new open space. Now, I'm so delighted to hear Sam talk about that there's money and sites are ready to go for new development of open space. But which land and for how much? Car parks are located in strategically important sites, being land purchased or set aside in close proximity to shopping and services. On a side-by-side basis, arguments can be made for relative utilisations. However, these sites follow the Brunswick and Coburg activity centres up Sydney Road, and so are exactly located in the heart of the planned and actual increase in housing density. A casual glance at the urban heat island effect map will also show this same corridor is the hot backbone of Moreland. These car park sites are our future new open space. If we allow council land to be developed at non-commercial rates, they cannot be realised for financial gain, nor can they be fully developed for the common good. So ratepayers are paying a triple whammy. So I'm here talking about open space today. Thanks.
Thanks, Mel.
Traditional owners whose sovereignty they have never ceded. I have been a unionist all my life, in my work life, and I continue to be. I've been a bike rider, a commuter bike rider since I was a young kid, getting to school and back, and I continue to do that. I sold my car in 1996, so I don't have to rely on a car although I do share one. And so I throw these things out because I want to illustrate that I actually kind of walk the talk. I have been in Brunswick now for about 15 years. I've supported many of the councillors, the Greens councillors who've been elected, and very proud of the work that they've done and the leadership they've shown our community, and I'm looking forward to being able to get into that role if the 22nd of October goes my way. I've worked in many sectors. As an educator, I'm actually teaching at Princess Hill Primary, so a lot of the kids and parents I know from this southern part of the ward. I've worked in the community sector for 15 years in HIV/AIDS, homelessness and housing, so I'm very concerned about those issues. And I'm currently sitting on the Housing Advisory Committee for Council, and I've been sitting as an observer for that for a couple of years. I'm on the Ceres board, and I'm also part of the food swap table at Ceres, which is separate to the organisation, but very interested in food and sustainability. I'm a part of the Friends of Upfield Linear Park. 4 years ago, when Brunswick Station was started to be replanted, that work, I was part of that work, and some of the people in the room have been part of that work, and we've been working on that with a new group that's just reinvigorated the Friends of Upfield Linear Park. So I'm really interested in seeing more trees to counter the urban heat island effect that Mel mentioned, and addressing climate change, and seeing that we actually implement our zero carbon evolution plan. So I'm really looking forward to bringing more transparency, more engagement, and showing the leadership that we can give and take it up to the state government, who are actually part of the problem with the old parties, the Liberals and the Labor, who actually set the framework that people are complaining about of accessibility and apartments. But we need to actually get the change happening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lucky last, I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Wurundjeri people. My name's Councillor Meghan Hopper. I was elected in 2012, and in 2014 I became Moreland's youngest ever female mayor. But my family have lived in this community for over 100 years, and so like you, we've watched this area grow and change, and we feel really strongly about the history and the culture of this area. I'm going to talk about some of the areas that I've advocated for most strongly during my term on council. One of those has been public safety infrastructure initiatives. You would have seen the new park at Wilson Avenue, which is an award-winning public safety initiative to curb what was Moreland's #1 crime hotspot. That's something I had the pleasure of opening as mayor. We've also delivered 8,500 new LED streetlight globes across Brunswick and Coburg to help you get home safer late at night, but to also cut emissions and electricity costs. I have a consistent track record on council of supporting mandatory height controls, initiatives that promote leading environmentally sustainable planning and building, and heritage protections. To that end, during my term as mayor, I pushed hard to secure a heritage overlay on important interwar properties along Lygon Street, which was successful. I also advocated for the planning minister to stop a development opposite RRR, which would have blocked the radio station's Fresnel zone. I'm councillor responsible for the arts and culture, so it's great to be standing here tonight in Saxon Street Community Hub, where we do have a number of leading artistic initiatives, including Black Dot Gallery just across the way. And I also feel very strongly about keeping our aged and home and community services in-house, and that's something that I've voted consistently for on council. So I'm seeking re-election this year because I want to continue making it happen in Moreland, continue to deliver a track record of proven results, and I ask for your support. Thank you.